And welcome back to Crime Kitchen. Today we are very fortunate. We've got our guest cook, Stu Murphy, a very good friend of mine. Worked together for 30 years. Stu was a former jockey, and he's going to talk about his life within horses. When he retired a few years ago, he went and did a bit more with horses. He's currently employing back with West Mercia as a support manager in a major investigation around maternity care at regional hospital. We're not going to talk about that. That's an ongoing inquiry. But what Stu's going to do today is to cook us some nice food, as we do on Crime Kitchen, and tell us about his life as a jockey, really, and where that blended back into when he became a police officer. And so we're going to welcome today. We're going to welcome Stuart. So come on in, Stuart. Yeah. Nice to see you.
And you. Good afternoon, gents.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Very much. Welcome.
Nice to meet you.
And you are the first. You are the first to have a Crime Kitchen agent because you cook, and cooks have to have an apron. So there you go.
I
do put the back.
Oh well.
You might want to relight the fire, but
I feel honoured.
I'm looking forward to the stories and looking forward to cooking some of that chicken.
Thank you. Well, we'll get
we're stoking back up again.
The grill fired up. It's very windy today, isn't it?
Yeah, so, we apologise. We're having some trouble, but we'll get there. And if we have to, it goes off. We'll just keep lighting it, and Stu will work his way through it. He's used to improvising all through his career.
Yeah.
So, I don't know about the cook, but I'm going to cook you a little Chinese dish, which is just some chicken and some chili honey sauce to go with it, with a few sesame seeds on top, hopefully. So I can get the chicken going in the wok.
So Stu, tell us. I mean, we're gonna. You've had a great policing career, and we've worked together a long time over some of the jobs we've been talking about over there. We've been working together, but it all started for you in horses, and as a 16-year-old. So you tell us what happened really, and what that's all about.
Yeah, well, the introduction, Jockey's a little bit grand. I was probably a stable lad who worked in racing for 6 years, and was lucky enough to have a few rides over jumps when I was younger and about 5 stone slimmer. But it started really when I was at school. I was lucky enough to have an English teacher, Mrs. Reynolds, who took me under my wing really, because when I was at school I was only very small and slight. I thought I was going to follow my mum, who's only 5'2", and I thought being a jockey would have been fantastic. Unfortunately, when I go 18, 19, I sort of shot up. But that's another story. But anyway, Mrs. Reynolds introduced me to a local point-to-point and livery yard, and it was the man who run it was a fella called Major Ron Holiday. And he was a great old ex-major, as his title suggests, but a real good old-fashioned trainer of horses. We had a lot of problem horses there, so I quickly learnt how to stay on, because we used to take troubled horses in try and do something with them, retrain them. And of course there was the point-to-point inside.
What constitutes a troubled horse in horse racing world? I mean, I'm totally. All I know is to put a bet on and look an argument.
Yeah, well, they're all different. Some race horses I've worked with over the years, you could literally put your grandma or your granddad on, or your 2-year-old child. They're that quiet. Yeah. Others, are very much temperamental, just like humans. They're not all the same. They're all different. But as I said, I had 2 years there, learnt a lot, and as I was due to leave school when I was 16, I wrote to 3 trainers. I wrote to a fella called Harry Thompson-Jones in Newmarket, who trained a lot of good horses, Fred Winter, who's a champion national hunt trainer and jockey in his time. Fred trained in Lambourne then, and a local trainer called Fred Rymel. And Fred was the first one to write back, and as he was localish, I went to Fred's. I left school on the Wednesday and left home on the Monday. And I can remember my mum took me. I had to be there. He trained at Kinnersley Racing Stables just outside Worcester. My mum took me. I had to be there for 12 o'clock dinner time, and so I'm introduced to the assistant trainer, who was a guy called Kim Bailey. Kim trains in his own right now and has been for a number of years successfully. Kim's trained the Grand National winner, Mr. Frisk, Mr. Oates, who won the Gold Cup, and a horse called Olderbrook, who won the Champion Hurdle. And Kim continues in the Cotswolds where he trains, and trains a lot of good horses, a lot of winners. So Kim, got introduced to Kim. Kim met my mum, and he said, "I'll take you and show you your accommodation." And the yard at Kinnersley was a big square was the main yard, and you really literally could eat off the floor. So clean, number of lime trees round, real leafy, lovely stable yard, and you got off the yard through a door, and I remember going through the door and seeing a big frying pan on the floor with a load of cats eating out of it, and you're sort of 16 and thought nothing of it, and followed him up the rickety staircase, and there was the most horrendous smell I've ever smelled. And obviously Kim looked and could see me smell. He said, "Don't worry, that's Jack Kidd's room." Well, Jack Kidd, God rest his soul, was the travelling head lad, so he used to drive the horse box at Fred's, and had done for 30 years prior to me being there. A little Irish fella. And nobody had ever seen old Jack ever have a bath in the 30 years he lived there. And he lived in that same room all that time. You walk past Jack's room, and you, right in front of you is an old New Zealand rug, which is a horse rug, nailed onto the ceiling, hanging down with a big hole in the middle. And I got closer, I had a little look through, and that was the toilet. With ripped up copies of the Sporting Life for toilet paper, and it was like a scene off the Young Ones, this toilet. It was black, it was disgusting, but that was the toilet. You walked past the toilet, through another door, and that was the bathroom. So you had a bath and a sink, and I'm thinking, well, that's interesting, there must be another door at the other end, because if you're in the bath, well, people are going to walk past you. I thought, so there must be another room, another way into here. And then we come to the first door, first bedroom. There were 6 beds one side, 6 beds the other, all toe to toe, and they were all old hospital beds from the war. And you needed a leg up to get on them. They were that high off the floor. And Kim said, "That's yours." And mine was right at the far side of the room, by the window. Well, all you get in this room was beds. There was nowhere for your clothes. There was nothing. There was no switches. So you just had the light, and that was it. No electric points or plugs or anything. But you're young, you're away from home, and it's an adventure.
Yeah.
But what I did do consciously.
Do you want to turn down, Stu? You okay?
That's okay. I thought if I turn around and have eye contact with my mother, she's going to say, grab me by the ear and say, "You're coming home." I kept my distance from her, and luckily she went and left me there, and off she went in floods of tears, unbeknown to me. But in those days, I worked for Fred Rymel. You know, Fred, a little bit about Fred was he was champion trainer 5 times. He was a champion jockey 3 times. He broke his neck in a fall, which cut short his career. So he had to stop riding after that. Fred was married to his long-standing wife, Mercy Rymel. Mercy was an Olympic show jumper when she was 14 in her younger days. She was Mary Coburn before she married Fred. She was only 17 when she married him. But a very, very accomplished horsewoman, and still was, even at her age. Then, and God bless her, she died in 2073 at the grand old age of 93, and she still lived just outside Upton. But it was run like a military operation. As I say, the assistant trainer was Kim Bailey. The head lad was a fellow called Ron Peachy, who was an ex-guard, and woe betide you if you were ever late. Well, you were never late. Never. You were never ill. Yeah. You could have been dying with whatever the plague, but you were never ill. And we used to have our meals at a lady called Mrs. Harris, who lived round the corner. And the kitchen, I'm not kidding you, was something like this. And there'd be 12 of us in there. And if you weren't in the first 4 getting round for your dinner or your evening meal, you had to stand up eating 6 days a week, mince, carrots and spuds. That was your evening meal. your dinner was she'd leave you spam sandwiches, but of course everything tasted of onion, because in the summer she worked on the land and pulled spring onions, and in the winter she pulled leeks. Everything tasted of onion. So if you didn't like onion, woe betide you. So we all looked after 3 horses each, and so you started at 7 o'clock in the morning, mucked your 3 out. You had to be tacked up on your horse, walking up and down outside the yard before 8 o'clock. And woe betide you if you were ever late. If you left it past 8 o'clock, you'd get the biggest rollicking off the head lad. And if he didn't get you, Kim, and you really didn't want one off Fred, the old man, all mercy.
So in that world, like everybody wants to know about the tips and things like that, you know, were there really good tips and that used to come through the sale yards and that?
Well, yes. Because you've got to remember, you're with these horses 24 hours a day, 7 days, and it was 7 days a week when I started. We used to get every 3rd weekend off.
Yeah.
And your weekend started when you finished riding out on a Saturday morning, and you tried to be quick on a Saturday, so usually finished for about 12 o'clock. However, if your horse was running in a race on a Saturday and it was your weekend off, it was tough. You went to the races in Tucket. So because you're with these horses 24/7, you do get to know them inside out. Yeah. And and if you're riding horses out regular, you know when that horse is well and fresh, and that could be a bright eye. If his eye's dull, he's not so good. If his coat's not shining, not gleaming, you know there's something wrong. But that gets picked up pretty quick. And of course, horses like certain times of the year. I was lucky enough I never looked after him, but I rode him out every day and took him racing a horse called Western Rose, who was a real top class hurdler. And then when he went chasing, beautiful horse. In fact, the Queen Mother, they tried to buy him for the Queen Mother because he was such a good looking horse, and he'd win all the best turned outs whenever there was one. And the owner didn't want to sell him, but he was great in the early autumn. He was fine. Bear in mind, in those days you didn't have summer racing, summer jumps racing like you do now. The season finished at Stratford in May and started again in the West Country at Newton Abbot in Denman-Exeter beginning of August. So he'd run when there was a bit, because the ground was always too firm. Sort of August time, September, but he used to run well sort of October, November, and when the ground got really heavy, he would hate it. And so you didn't bother running him during sort of December, January, February, but once the spring started to come and it got a little bit warmer, riding him out, it was complete. You think you're on 2 different horses. Yeah. From in the winter, which he didn't like the heavy ground, and then when you get on him and ride him in the summer when it was starting to get a little bit of spring in the air, and they can feel it, they can sense it. Yeah. He was a completely different horse then. So yeah, some horses will go on, they like it heavy ground, when it's really soft, like it would be now, with all the rain we've had, and others who like it a little bit firmer.
I was going to say, Stu, move on a bit, and we work here, and I know, how good a detective you are, and so where the skills you took from, did you take some skills from the horse world, the racing world? I mean, we don't launch every day's a learning day, but what did you bring from your racing? I mean, I know how good you were as a police officer. Your interview skills, with people was brilliant, and we've done some great, really big major investigations together. But do you think that first helped you?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it's very kind of you to say that. I don't know whether I'm worthy of that, but but it was.
No, it's good. He's a good detective. Very.
It was. Yeah. I mean, you take with you discipline. As I mentioned earlier, the stable life in routine was run like a military operation. and you take that discipline with you into another discipline service, which was the police service, and it was disciplined 36 years ago when I joined. Same with you, Anne. Unfortunately, it's just a reflection of society. It's probably got a little bit more tolerant now, but then it was, short back insides in all the rest of it. And it was the same in the stables. I mean, you had to be smart. You went to the races, you were smart because you were representing Fred. And of course, you learned to talk to people. I was the youngest one there, and there was some rough lads there.
So what made you, or what was the tipping point you coming out? Because clearly you loved your racing and you've always had them, to be like it from such a young age and follow that through as your side of your career. And that.
Don't turn it off, you just turn it off.
Then there was a tipping point somewhere where you ended up going into the police force. Because for some people watching, it would look quite two distinct careers, and two very different types of careers.
Well, that's not as good.
It's not like a natural progression, is it, to be a jockey and then end up in the police force?
I think, David, what it was, I don't think I know. You sort of, for a start, the wages, when I went there, I was on £3 a week when I started, till I could prove to Fred, which was a month, and Mercy, that I was worthy of working for them, because it was an honour. They were one of the top trainers in the country, top class horses, and probably didn't appreciate that, when I was 16, 17, 18, riding out champion hurdle winners, Gold Cup winners, Triumph hurdle winners, on a daily 2-mile championship, Cheltenham. And you didn't really appreciate it. When I look back now and think, blimey, what I achieved in racing, I'm really proud of myself. I didn't then, but of course, as I said, I shot up when I had a few rides, and and I knew I was never going to be champion jockey. The weight, I started to grow, started to fill out, and I remember the last ride I had was at Nottingham Racecourse. Now Nottingham is just the jumping and a flat track then. Now it's just
left, I think. Right?
It's just a jump.
The right hand one. The right hand one. No, that's it. Yeah. Just go wherever. Yeah.
Was it Nottingham? And a fellow I'd met. I worked in Norway for one summer. Worked for a trainer in Norway, in Oslo, and worked with a fellow called Norman Babbage, and his mother trained, and Norman rang me up on a Sunday morning and said, will you ride one at Nottingham tomorrow for me? And I said, yeah, of course. Not looking to see what weight it was carrying.
You don't turn it off?
Just want to turn it down. That's it.
That's off now.
Yeah. Not looking to see what weight it was carrying, and to my horror, it was carrying 10 stone 4, because it was a mare and had a mare's allowance, because a mare will get a few pounds knocked off its if its weight running against Geldens in this particular, not every race, but in this particular race. And with my £7 claim, in riders get a £7 claim when they're inexperienced till they've ridden 50 winners, and then it drops down to 5, and they ride some more winners, and then it drops down to 3, and then when you've ridden 75 over jumps and I think it's 90 on the flat, you lose your claim. So you're in there with the proper jockeys.
I didn't know all that. I thought the weight was the weight.
Yeah. So 10-4.
Some of them were handicapped and.
So 10 stone 4 with my claim. So that was 9 stone 11 it was carrying, and I jumped on the scales and I was about 10.5 stone. And I thought, Struth, I've got to shift a bit of weight before. And he was running in the first at Nottingham the next day. So my girlfriend come round. I said, forget about Sunday dinner. I jumped in the car, went straight down to Tewkesbury swimming pool, where it was the only place they had a sauna. I spent all, because I was working that weekend anyway. So I jumped in the sauna, did a few lengths, back in the sauna till I had to go to work. I went to work, and I remember. Do you remember the old Sketchley covers your suits used to come back in from? So one of those with as many jumpers as I could get on, and some tracky bottoms. Went to work, sweated like mad. Come out of work, did a 5-mile run, and I wasn't drinking. I was just gargling water, or when I got home, cleaning my teeth. And then in those days, very naughtily, there was pills you could take to make your pee. So a friend, another jockey, gave me some of those. I had a steaming hot cup of black tea, well, half a little cup of black tea, and went to bed and waited for nature to take its course. got up early the next morning, did another 5 mile run before I went to work, got in the horse box, went to the races, and feeling, as you can imagine, and managed to lose the weight. And
so how much did you actually get off then?
Probably about £10 overnight.
Really?
Yeah, overnight.
It's harsh, wasn't it?
That was
Brutal.
Class,
Just clean your teeth in gargling water and trying to take salt tablets with it because you just dehydrate so quick.
You see why things have to change.
Things have changed out of all recognition now. There's proper, most race courses now. You've got racing welfare who look after the welfare of the stable staff. You've got the injured jockeys fund now in Lambourne and Newmarket, Malton, where you can go and rehabilitate the jockeys. And you get nutritionists and telling jockeys, advising them what to eat and how to eat. So it's far. There was nothing in those days. But so we finished 5th. It was a little horse called Deermount. We led until the straight, and then just got beat and finished 5th. And that was the last ride I had. Then got up the next morning, and there was thick snow on the ground. And racing was abandoned well, in fact, we were stuck in Kinnersley for 2 weeks. We couldn't get out.
Right.
Because the snow was that thick. I felt like death, but as I said earlier, you didn't have a day off. That was taboo. You just didn't have it, and I didn't have a day off in that 6 all the time I was there, and that's followed me through to the police because I've rarely had any time off in the police.
That's a good thing. That work ethic taken forward, and I know how Stuart's worked.
Yeah.
But interesting, I'll tell you a story now. So, how long ago? So, Stuart's, is it 10 years plus?
Do you need that forward back up again, Stu?
No, that's fine. That'll just sit there now, and taking the sword.
Obviously, Stu's always, you can tell, his love of horses, his passion of horses, his facts, his figures, he's just got it. And you go to Stu's house, and the telly's on, there's racing on all the time. But anyway, so you got an invite to the injured jockeys. A Chepstow Injured Jockeys race, wasn't it?
I was a charity race, at Chepstow. That was in 2006.
2006, was it?
2006, yeah.
So Stu's got it's a proper ride, a proper race. It's the last race of that at Chepstow. So I go down, and he comes out on this horse. It's a bit flighty, isn't it? It's a proper horse.
It was a bit.
Proper, I wouldn't like him on my back. And this horse obviously didn't like that. And he was like. And I put some money on it. Well, I think it's still running this year.
It's still running. Yeah, I think it's just coming into the straight at Chepstow now. I think.
Well, I have to say, the ones that I've ever back to still running.
It was only a great cause for the injured jockeys. Injured jockeys.
Well, it was for it's a lady called Belinda Cullen who was she worked in racing in Lambourne and lost the bottom of her leg.
That's right.
So it was.
You had to sort of.
Yeah, raise money for her. Yeah, we had to raise money.
I enjoy going to the Cheltenham Festival. I'm going in. When is it? March, isn't it?
In March, yeah.
We did, didn't we?
Yeah.
I quite like going to the...
I'm
going this one of the days.
But, it was a great life, and just to finish, Fred died in the July in '81, and he won very 68, I think Fred was when he died, and I was lucky enough. I looked after the last winner Fred trained. Was a little horse called Avon Cool who used to run on the flat, and he won a 6 furlong sprint at Chester at the end of July, just after Fred had died, before Fred died. And then Mercy, his wife, took out the licence to train, because the trainers have to be licensed, and I was lucky enough to look after Mercy's first winner, which was a horse called Trumar, who won it the first meeting at Worcester in the summer, in the August. And he won. That was so. I looked after Fred's last winner in Mercy's first. So
a couple of quick questions before we finish. One is in terms of ingredients. What's in your special jar?
In there's a little bit of garlic. There's some honey, sesame oil, some soy sauce, some chili sauce. And that's about it, really.
Yeah,
bit of tomato sauce and a little bit of couple of spoonfuls of brown sugar.
Smells beautiful.
Yeah.
I've got one really important question, which is within the tips of Cheltenham.
Yeah, keep it in your pocket.
I'm going to bring the story back, because our first episode was about a merger. Philip Smith, and Stuart knows very well. We worked together on it, and he killed 3 women. And Stuart was the family liaison officer with our victims' family, and did a superb job. And I have to say, and if people watching this, if you look back to episode 1/2, we split that particular thing. Stuart looked after their family and an absolute did a fantastic job. And we never know where that family is now. We're 20 odd years on.
Yes.
But I know that they had absolutely got the best service from West Mercia in the circumstances where a lady's died, and but it was a really great job. So thanks Stuart. Fantastic meal. We're gonna eat that in a minute, ladies and
I
gentlemen.
hope so. I'm not, because I've had it before.
But yeah, thanks so much. He's earned his stripes today.
It definitely has, thanks ever so much for coming on.
Thanks,
You've been
pleasure,
great.
enjoyed that.
We're just going to stay here for a minute and say goodbye.
Yeah, we will.